Hey guys, it's Pupper here. I thought I would make a masculine guide to enjoying Genshin Impact, and it's just my take on the game and how you can enjoy yourself in this wonderful world. So we can start off by talking about the characters. If you're like me and you like characters like Escanor or like Meliodas, characters that are somewhat overpowered, but they also have some muscle. Sadly, this game doesn't have too much of that. You have Zaluk, um, you have Child, but for the most part, these guys are fairly skinny. There's no one really in this game that's super buff, not yet anyway. With time, we do hope that there will be more characters like that. An example is, of course, Zhongli, and the ideal one that we really don't know his appearance of is Varka. And for those of you who don't know who Varka is actually the Grand Master of Mondstadt, the main city. And currently he's been said to be on an expedition, to which we have no real answer as to when he'd be back, but um, in the quest lines, they describe him as being an absolute unit and extremely massive, which is good because that means he might be the only Genshin Impact playable character who is muscular, to be honest. And with that out of the way, we can talk about power creep. So this game, although it's single player, it is also kind of a mobile game in the fact that it is a gacha and it is on mobile. But for the most part, you don't really have to worry too much about spending money. Um, the developers of this game, known as MiHoYo, also made another game called Honkai Impact. And while although Honkai Impact is it's almost the same, but it's slightly different in that they didn't take an open world approach, and because most of the game has only waifus, and I believe there's only like two playable main characters, and they aren't too stellar. And I was afraid they'd take the same route for this game, but thankfully they added my man Diluc. And I, of course, immediately got a hold of him. And you might be asking yourself, well, how did I immediately get a hold of him? This game is random. Well, I'll tell you how. I spent countless hours re-rolling and re-rolling in order to make sure I got this character specifically, and the reason why is because this is the character I wanted to play. You can play any character as a main DPS in this game, it really doesn't matter. But if you want to be able to have fun, I would highly recommend you pick a character that you would enjoy playing as, and a character that you feel is, the one you want to main, essentially. For the most part, I have all the characters. I believe the only character I'm missing at this point is Kaching. I will be doing a lot more guides and character. What is it called? Character showcases, where I can show you the abilities, what they do, the constellations, how they work, and hopefully doing this kind of stuff would help grow my channel. And that's mainly what I'm going for. I'm a fairly new content creator, and this is just my attempt in trying to grow, I suppose. And now we talked about power creep. So while each character is somewhat independent, they do work together in many ways. One thing you'll notice right off the bat is that not all my characters are level 80. The reason for that is because you should not have too many characters level 80. One example I can give you right now is that the reason why Klee, Diluc, Child, and Ningguang are all at 80 is because they're all my main DPS players. And you're asking yourself, what do you mean by main DPS players? Well, they're the ones that are going to be out the most. This game is essentially an RPG, and when you're thinking about team building and whatnot, you essentially have one main DPS, and then you have a healer, which could be in Chi-Chi, Barbara, or Bennett, or Diona. Those are basically the four main healers. If you want to have a sub healer, Noelle is also a healer, but she's more of a main DPS healer in that she has to be on the field to be healing the most. And to be honest, at Constellation 6, she also hits like a truck, and she's cute as shit. Xingqiu is different. He does a lot of damage, but he also heals. But I personally wouldn't focus him on the healing aspect because um, he's considered an S tier support, and his damage is through the roof. The only reason I don't use him is because I got him much later, and I already had um, Barbara built, and then I had Mona built, and I was going to build Child, and I couldn't really build Xingqiu right away. Even though I do have him at 6 constellations, it is part of the plan, but just not at the moment. Um, if it was possible to build all the characters, I would do it, but the game is very restrictive on the amount of resources you get and what you're allowed to actually invest into your characters. If you do end up burning through your resources, a lot of players do get stuck, and at that point, you kind of just have to do the earlier level domains and bosses. I don't think you can do bosses, but you have to do earlier domains in order to level up and be able to do the higher level content. Or you can do what a lot of people do, and that is they'll come sit in my stream and they'll ask me to help them through a domain, or they'll join the Discord servers and ask there, and I help everyone I can find because um, while I am such a high level, there is also very little for me to do as well, aside from doing my daily grind, which is um, clearing all the bosses, spending my resin, doing a couple domains, getting talent books if I need it, and as of right now, doing the meteor quests. Those are very important. You guys should not let it slide. The meteor events are spectacular for raising units, especially the second part, which will be coming soon. Make sure you're saving your fragile resin for that. If you do not know what fragile resin is, it is the currency you get when you level up, and the game gives it to you for free occasionally. Now, the weapon part is a little bit more nuanced, I suppose. So let me go to my inventory real quick, and we can take a quick look at that. So when you look at weapons, there's several things that go into choosing which one you want specifically. So say you have somebody who you want to use their ult more often, then you're going to want a 4-star with energy recharge on it. So an example would be the Favonius Warbow. This is a very common bow I've seen many people use, and it's fantastic for what it does. The sheer amount of energy recharge this bow gives you makes it great on any number of supports. The base attack, while it is low at 60, it will go up once you do level it up. And it's about, well, I don't have anything else at 60, so it's hard to compare, but the attack damage stat doesn't matter too much because it is a energy recharge bow, and this will definitely be on a support for the most part. A lot of people prefer the weapons that have attack as a substat. That's because, attack is the end-all be-all in this game. As far as character builds go, usually you want your attack to be at around 2 to 2.5 thousand. And while you're sitting there, you can change your crit chance, crit damage, elemental mastery, and these things will fluctuate your damage depending on how much of each stat you have. Usually the sweet spot is for every 1% of crit chance you want to have 2% extra crit damage. Doing that will significantly improve your DPS output and help you clear content much more smoothly. Because I am a masculine player, I prefer one-shotting any and all content that I can get my hands on, and that is where my enjoyment in this game lies. And I got this refined twice, and if you're wondering what refinements are essentially when you need to get duplicates of a weapon, and then you can refine it and the more you refine it, the stronger it gets. If I can do an example real quick, here's a Favonius Lance. I go into its details, I go to refine, and then it says identical weapon materials. So I'll click, and then, oh, I have 3 of these, so I'm going to add one, and then I'm going to refine it. And here you can see that when I refine it, the crit hits, or like the rank of this, will go up, and by doing so, the effect of the item will increase slightly. This is why it's very hard to call this game pay to win, because this is such a small increase in your overall damage that it's not really a big deal until you have like 5 of them, and it becomes a substantial boost. But even at that point, it's like it's not really worth your money to do weapon summons, to be honest, unless you're whaling and you're spending maybe a couple $100 per banner. And then you click refine, it'll refine, and now it's the next rank, and you can just do that again and again until it hits max rank. The only 3-star weapons that I would recommend for anyone to build is the Debate Club if you don't have any other 4 stars, but keep in mind the Debate Club will only be useful up until about a level 40, at which point I would just throw it into the Animus prototype. It's the one I haven't made yet, but it is the one you make besides White Blind. I can go to a shop and show it to you later, but while I'm doing that, we can talk about this weapon specifically. So if you do have a Barbara, which almost everyone should at this point, because we've gotten 2 free Barbaras, this weapon at Refined 5 is basically a must for her. The weapon increases the player's attack by 48%, but the reason why it's good is that it isn't Barbara's attack that it's increasing the person that she switches back to. So say I'm playing the Luke, and then I switch to Barbara, and I switch back to the Luke gets the attack buff. So let me give you a quick little look-see as to how that works. I'm going to put in Barbara. So we switch to Barbara, we drop her E or do whatever, and then we go back to the Luke, and then you see that the arrows. The game is very subtle with the way it buffs you, and when you see things like this is an attack buff. In some cases, enemies will have the same thing but going downwards, and that's a debuff. It's really hard to tell what kind of debuffs you're throwing out there, so I will probably make a guide on all the debuffs you can apply to enemies. That includes the elemental reactions as well as how they work to keep it more simple and more easier to understand. And yeah, the weapons, that should cover it for the weapons for the most part. So now we're on to artifacts, which is without a doubt the most painful part of this game, and it's essentially endgame, I suppose. So you may be asking, wow, these are a lot of 5 stars. He must be super pay to win. Kind of, but not really. Once you get to AR45, you basically get a 5-star every domain run, and it's very consistent. So at that point, the problem becomes the substats. So it's a lot harder, because when you're a low AR, you can just upgrade anything. All that matters is the primary stat. So if you get attack percent, then you instantly want to max that out, because that is perfect for ranking up, and it gives you so much damage and freedom to do whatever you please. But if you are at this AR, the substats matter way too much. So let me look for an example. Not that one, here. So in my opinion, I got really lucky with this flower, only because I am trying to run a Viridescent Veneer Elemental Mastery Venti, who is trying to do tons of damage using the swirl, because the way the Viridescent Veneer set works is that it increases the swirl damage by 60%. It does not increase swirl damage by 60%, it increases the swirl damage. If you're confused by what that means, then think of it like this. If your swirl did 10 damage, this will make it do 16 damage. But if your swirl did 100 damage, this will make it do 160 damage. So it's not just increasing it like the original number by 60, it's increasing the overall value by 60%. And that stat is important because when you go to your character's details, it'll tell you what each stat is doing, how much you have of it, and what it's up to. Usually, the goblets, which are specific to one slot, like this, try your best to get it to match. If you can't, it's not a big deal. Again, I got fairly lucky with this artifact as well, in that I rolled elemental mastery and crit damage with 1 into HP percent, and this is average. It's not like spectacular. It's not a god roll, but it's good enough for now. If I want to re-roll it later, I can, but for the time being, it's okay. And getting these elemental damage cups are the hardest to get in the game by far. It's really rare, and you should never ever get rid of them. Make sure you keep all of them until the very end, and you're confident on what to keep and what to throw away. You've noticed that I haven't really fully upgraded anything. That's because in my 15 runs of this domain, I have yet to get a 5-star for this artifact, and it's a big grind because you're not guaranteed anything, and it's always tough to get what you want, and you just end up suffering for it. This one is okay. Again, it's attack percent, which is amazing, but the substats are just awful. Um, Although the attack plus looks good, keep in mind that this is not increased by this percentage. It's a flat increase at the very end, which is why the stat, while good, is kind of a bait, and it will cost you in the end if everything goes into the attack. Usually you want crit damage or crit chance depending on who you're playing. For an example, for Venti, of course, only because he's running the Verdicent Veneer set, I'm building Elemental Mastery on him, and that's why he has almost 300. And because of that 300, his swirl damage is increased by 100%, which is fantastic, and it helps him do a lot more damage than he would normally do, regardless of his attack. And if I go to Klee and I go to her details, she only has 2000 attack, but she has 83% pyro damage bonus, and this is basically increasing all of her damage by 83% because she only does pyro damage. So things like that help increase your DPS by a substantial amount. Her crit damage, this is where you want it to be, for each 1% of crit rate I have, I want 2% crit damage to make it worth my while. As far as this is concerned, it should be at like 200% crit damage right now, but the only reason it isn't is because I've gotten very unlucky with artifacts once again. And specifically, this one took me 20 runs of the domain to get, and after I got it, its stats weren't significantly amazing or anything to brag about, but you just gotta deal with what you've got. This one too, substats are really poor. I only keep this one around because the percentage to attack ones are still pretty good, and you should never underrate them. This one's also fairly decent. I'd be a lot happy if all this elemental mastery went to crit rate or attack instead, and I had a crit damage, but you just have to keep trying, because eventually these artifacts are it becomes a rerolling thing. It's like, there's a lot of rerolling in this game, and it's just a big grind, but it is fun, especially when you get a good enough build to watch an enemy disappear or evaporate, and it makes you feel like that's what I live for, you know. Um, in terms of characters, I think that's about it. I think we can talk about Zhongli now. He is, without a doubt, my most favorite character, or anticipated character, next to Varka. And the only reason Varka might be higher is because they haven't released a image of Varka, And so I am unsure of whether or not he is going to be as big as I hope he's going to be. Now, there was a kind of a leak of Zhongli, so we know his stats and everything that he's about. So I'm going to show that to you guys real quick. And there we go. Alright, so here, let me scroll to the top again. This is Zhongli's analysis. So we will be hopping back and forth so that we can look at the stats in game as well as here maybe. But as you can see with each one of these level increases, his damage goes up substantially like the other ones in the game. So we give it a quick count. So this is at rank 8, I believe. Yeah. So this is about a little subpar than I thought he would be. But the thing is, as much as I love Zhongli, I wouldn't recommend summoning for him unless you already have a main DPS, because everything about him screams tank support, and even though he is, that daddy character, he doesn't fill that role with his low damage. So this one, for example, when he presses his effect, which is his skill button, it changes like many do, based on whether you hold it or press it. The press effect creates a geopillar from the ground, which I would assume is kind of similar to what the Traveler does, except it's more of a pillar, and it inflicts damage, and it resonates with other geostructures, which is a weird thing to say, but the fact that it deals continuous geo damage is fairly cool as well, because it means he can probably do consistent crystallizes while he has multiple geo members on the field. So like say you have a Zhongli and then you have the Traveler uses ultimate and then they combo together, it's going to create like this field of AoE damage that just melts enemies. And when you look with where is it? Yes, I think this is his first constellation, or it might be one of his ascensions. No, it is. Okay, so this is his constellation 1, where it increases the number of stone stels created by Dominus Lapidus that may exist simultaneously to 2. So this may cause the damage to stack. It's not positive. I will be making a big review video on when he comes out. I will be doing 200,000 crystal summons. I will be streaming that as well. I'll leave my Discord and Twitch in the description below, and you guys can let me know if you guys want to see that or not. So this is his first talent, and in his first talent, when he takes damage, his shields will fortify. So for those of you who have Noelle, imagine using your E, but every time you got hit during your E, it gets stronger 5 times. Which, while not amazing, it might make it really good with his C6. But even then, like, in my opinion, this looks really strong, but it's hard to tell unless you put it into practice, and that's what I'm really worried about. Because, I mean, you're going to have to pay like $2,400 to get to this point, and it might just suck. And it's like, wow. And this skill was, I mean, it's pretty strong, but it's just as strong as Child's, to be honest. The only difference is that the energy is lower. The petrification duration was hit pretty hard. We can only hope that they plan on increasing it again. But they did buff this one, which it used to be 20%, but the fact that they made it 33% means that they are pushing him to be a tank, and they want him to be a DPS, also kind of like Noel, I suppose, except I think Zhongli specifically is one of the few HP oriented characters that does damage. Yeah, I would agree with this. Zhongli is definitely a whale character, and having something like this increases planet befall's AoE by 20% and increases the petrification effect seems like a must. And he's definitely a DPS support. For those of you who don't know what retracing boiled means, this is a artifact set in the game that increases normal attack and charge attack damage by 40% when covered by a shield, and it increases the strength of the shield by 35%, which is amazing. I'm just recording this video at this moment, but I might try and throw up some pictures while I'm talking so you guys know more about what I'm talking about, but yeah, that's about it. As far as the weapons go, they are planning on releasing a weapon with him. It's the same as the Memory of Dust, in which that every 4 attacks you're going to get a little thing spinning around you, which increases your attack by 4%. And then once you get max stats and a shield, it increases the overall effect by 100%, I believe. And yeah, that's about all I wanted to go over, I suppose. He he's definitely a tough choice for me. It depends how much support I get. I might just not do the summoning at all and just give up this game, but getting him to C6 is so expensive, and I don't understand why. He doesn't seem like a good enough unit. I just C1, in all honesty, like compared to Child. In my opinion, Child is significantly better than Zhongli. And for those of you who don't know, um, I believe Child's third ability, this one, it it literally does the same amount of damage in melee as Zhongli's, and you get your energy back very quickly, especially with how hard Riptide hits. And Riptide, in my opinion, is such a broken ability. And keep in mind, I have no constellations for a Child, but he still rips through content. I will be doing some more showcases with Child and with the Luke, Clee, Venti, all of it, showing you guys the ins and outs of every 5-star and how to use them effectively. I cannot do Kaching at the moment, sadly, and I can't do million damage combos at the moment because I did raise Clee and Luke, and my Bennett is still sitting at level 1 like a poor sad man. But thankfully, I did get this sword, which is amazing for Bennett. For those of you who don't know why, the 5-star sword gives you the highest base attack, which in return gives Bennett a whole lot of bonus AD, and that bonus AD comes from just base attack. So if I can find him, there he is. Look at his talents. This ability helps people do a dangerous amount of damage in the game, and it's easily the best one. So, look real quick here. So at rank 1, the attack bonus ratio is 56%. What that means is it takes his base attack, which at the moment is not very high, which is only 39. It takes half of that, about, and gives it to the character who's standing in it. So if you build him with enough attack, with leveling up all the way up to 80, and then you give him a 5-star sword, you can give like Diluc or Mona maybe 1 to 2,000 attack easily. And yeah, I do plan on eventually trying to make the 1 million damage videos and the 100,000 damage videos, but those kind of things take time. I do have a couple of people at Constellation 6 I want to show you guys, especially Noel. I think Noel's some monster at Constellation 6. Beto isn't there yet. Xing Chu is sitting there, and I think it's about Osucros and Ningguang. I do have a lot of fun with Ningguang. My only problem with her is that, again, the resources in this game are a little choked, so I need to upgrade this. I had assumed that her Star Shatter was the one that did the most amount of damage, but surprisingly, this does a decent amount of damage, but most of the damage from C6 Ningguang comes from leveling up her normal attacks, which is what I might go for next. I also plan on maxing out Child. He's almost there. I got really lucky with my Dilute constellation, so he's at 3. If I get enough support, I will be extremely grateful if you guys leave a like, comment below, maybe even follow me on Twitch. I will do the 200,000 summon on Zhongli's banner, but for the most part, that's it for my first video, I think, on Genshin Impact. Alright, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. If you did last until this long and you want to talk to me personally on Discord or anything, feel free to join it, and I'll be happy to spend some time with you. Thanks.